Welcome to the Purpose Focused Advisor, a podcast for financial planners, advisors, and RIAs looking to get the most out of yourself and your business. Join Rob Brown and Phil Calandra as they walk you through a journey that will allow you to take action in your business and your life so you can be the best that you can possibly be. Now here are your hosts, Rob and Phil.
Okay, welcome back to the Purpose Focused Advisor podcast. Rob Brown here today. My partner Phil is off doing other things, so he's left me in control. So it could be dangerous. But what's most exciting is our guest, Michael DeLon. Michael and I are friends. We actually met through podcasting and sharing a couple of podcasts together and continue to share opportunities with our audiences to get to know more about the other person. Michael is just a fantastic guy, but I'm going to let him do the introduction. Michael, take it away.
All right, Rob, thank you for having me here. It's always good just to be with you and hang out a bit. So for your audience, I'm Michael DeLon. Here's my background. I'm a follower of Christ. I've been married since 1990. I've got 4 kids, 2 biological sons, 2 adopted daughters. We got those through foster care in Little Rock, Arkansas. We fostered for about 8 years, fostered 20 kids and adopted 2 of them. Jill and I got married in 1990, Rob, and the first 5 years of my marriage were like this. I mean, Jill and I are complete opposites. And we both grew up in church, but nobody taught us how to be married. And so after 5 years of conflict, we went to a Weekend to Remember marriage conference by a ministry called Family Life. And we sat in the ballroom and they revealed God's blueprints for marriage to us. I didn't know he had blueprints. So I grabbed his blueprints. We started working on our marriage. Our marriage got better through the 90s. Now in the 90s, I was working for Christian radio and I was sales and marketing. That's where I learned how to do marketing for small business owners. And at the end of the 90s, God led us out of that to a startup.com back when Amazon was just getting started, right? And I was selling websites and things. And that company lasted 2 years because they were ahead of their time. That means they went bankrupt. And so they went bankrupt. I'm standing in my living room going, God, what am I supposed to do now? And he spoke to my heart. He's like, Michael, I want you to ministry to marriages, and I want you at Family Life, that ministry that changed our marriage. So we raised support for 2 years as missionaries, moved from Indiana down to Little Rock, Arkansas, started with Family Life in the radio department. I thought I hit nirvana. Why would I ever leave? Well, 8 years later, I was on the leadership team of Family Life, and they started going through corporate reorganizations. And so the third reorganizational chart came out, and my name's no longer on their leadership team. So they start shuffling me around the ministry to do all kinds of things. And that began a 2-year prison term, as I call it, Rob, where I was in a job I hated at a ministry that I loved. And after 2 years, I got fed up and I went to Jill and God and I said, I got to get out of this place. And God said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to help small business owners with marketing because they struggle with it, but I love it. And he said, go. So on January 1st of 2013, I escaped from prison. I left ministry, started a marketing consulting firm. I had one client, helped him break through some barriers. He'd refer me to you, Rob, and I'd come out and I'd call you and set an appointment. I'd come out and talk with you, and we'd have a great conversation. And somewhere in that conversation, you would say, now, Michael, who else have you helped? What else have you been doing for the last few years? And I say, well, I've been helping build marriages and families at Family Life. And you say, Michael, that's honorable. Way to go. Oh, look at the time. I've got another meeting coming up. Let's reschedule and keep this conversation going. And you'd usher me right out the door because you didn't have any confidence, Rob, that I could help you because you saw me as a ministry guy, not a marketing guy. And so I was having a hard time getting clients. And so I went to my church one day, second floor, I was pacing the hallways, crying out to God, saying, how do I help Rob? And God gave me the idea to take all of my ideas for marketing and put them in a book. And so I did. I wrote and published my first book back in 2013. It's called On Marketing. Then, Rob, I would call you. I'd set an appointment. I would mail you a copy of my book. And a week later, I'd walk into your office for our meeting, and there it was. My book was on your desk, dog-eared, highlighted, and underlined. You'd read my book. And in that meeting, you'd say, now, Michael, in your book, you said, how do you help me do that? And you'd hire me. I started gaining clients, and I thought, why don't business owners create a book to help them grow their business? Well, as you know, Rob, writing a book's kind of hard. And so what I did is I systematized the entire process, created a speak to write process where we now help financial advisors and other business professionals create a book without writing a word. And then we teach them how to use their book to gain more clients. That's what I get to do all day, every day. And it's just a total blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I had imagined that a lot of advisors listening to this podcast have a similar story in their background. And it's true whether they think about their careers when they were starting out, but it may even be true now that they've achieved a level of success. They have a different target audience in mind, and they don't know how to express what makes them credible, why they do what they do, and writing a book can be an important element of this.
Yeah, very, very much so, especially if you're going to a different audience. But even if you're stagnant because you're going after the same audience, here's what I found, Rob, is in our day with Google and everything, people aren't looking for information. They are looking for somebody they can trust. Somebody who can, dare I say, dumb down some of this financial guru stuff and gobbledygook that we don't understand outside the industry. I don't want to understand the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional and a SOP 510. I don't care. I want you to know. And I'm looking for somebody I can trust. And when you create a book and you put your story and your thoughts and your successes in that book, people bond with you, they get to trust you, and they're willing to take that next step of finally meeting with you. So I think you're 100% right, because it's not a lack of information, it's a lack of trust that the audience is dealing with.
Right. I was talking with somebody the other day about the topic of trust. And when you first meet someone, that trust is borrowed. Because they really haven't had a chance to see you in action. So you need to create that feeling of trust and transfer it to the way that borrowing it could become something permanent. And again, a book is a great way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing more fun, Rob. All right, so let's say you're an advisor and you're going to have a first meeting with somebody. Why not mail them a copy of your book before that meeting? Say, hey, Rob, I'm looking forward to meeting with you next Tuesday. Here's a copy of my book. Sign it to them, obviously. Why don't you, read a few pages, bring it with you, and we'll talk about what intrigues you about planning a great future. Then when you meet, it's actually like a second or a third meeting. The trust has already been built, and the barriers are down a little bit. Great way to start.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I love the idea of seeing that. I send my books out in a big puffy red envelope because I know it will stand out. They're going to open it and wonder what's inside. And even if they haven't had a chance to read much of it in dog ear, it's at the top of their stack because you've attached your meeting to that book. And it's a great way to get the conversation, going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, when I think of books and credibility and marketing and business growth, it's really all tied together because I'm biased, Rob. I think a book is a great way to present yourself because it can be used in so many different ways, but it gives you the real estate needed. And we read books like we listen to radio and podcasts, one-on-one. I don't gather my family to listen to a podcast. I gather my family to watch TV. I don't gather my family to read a book. So when somebody's reading your book, they're actually bonding with you. They're spending time with you. Again, it's like a first meeting. They're getting to know you, to like you, to trust you, and to understand who you are and why you do the things that you do the way you do them.
Right. And as I think I've told you before, Michael, I've actually helped a couple of my clients write books. And I loved doing it, but it took a lot of time.
Yes.
And you've kind of solved that problem for your clients who work with you in writing a book. Talk a little bit about your process.
Yeah. So you can create a book with us in under 24 clock hours of your time. Okay. Our process is build with our professional writers. You're going to meet with one of our writers about an hour a week for about 10 to 12 weeks to build the outline for your book. And once the outline's created, and that takes about 3 or 4 calls, then you're going to walk through and be guided through our speak to write process. Because Rob, you can talk about your business all day long. Our job is to guide you through a process, ask you the right questions. So if you can just show up on a Zoom call with knowledge in your head, we're going to extract your genius. It's our job to ask the questions. It's our job to guide you down the process so that you can build an hour a week into your calendar to create your book. And all you're doing is showing up and speaking your book. Our writers are doing all the physical writing. We're presenting you with chapter after chapter after chapter that you get to review, send back for changes. And it's really a simple process that is fast, that you just build an hour a week into your calendar. And before you know it, you're a published author.
Which is great. But I was thinking of the audience on this podcast probably has some of those devil's advocate, doubting Thomas sort of questions going on. That sounds, too easy, too simple. And one of the objections that I can hear, or one of the puzzlements that I can hear is, well, how do I keep my book from sounding like everybody else's book? Because if everybody's going through Michael's process the same way, don't they all tell the same story after all? Aren't all financial advisors the same?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is no, they're not, because you have a unique story. And that's the first thing we always do with one of our clients is we spend 30 days with me to get the title, the theme, and the story of who are you and why do you do what you do and what separates you. That becomes the theme of your book. Okay, so one quick example, financial advisor, she's up in Canada. Okay, and she came to me. She'd written a book before by herself. She was trying to write the second one, just couldn't get it done. She came to us and we worked with her and discovered what her heartbeat is, what separates her from all the financial advisors in Canada, right? So Lynn, we positioned her as Canada's financial architect. Okay, and we created her book cover to have this house theme, architects build houses, a financial blueprint, because that's what architects create, a financial blueprint to protect your family and preserve your wealth. That's who Lynn is. And then from there, as we talked with her, we created the RETIRE acronym, her process. It was already built. She just didn't name it. I'm a big fan of naming things. So her RETIRE process is her 6-step process that now flows through the book. So when you're reading Lynn's book, you might be hearing similar concepts, but she's codified it in a way that makes a lot of sense. And nobody else in Canada has this process. It's very unique to her. That's what we always look for as we work with a client, because you all have a story to tell, but you're not telling it. You may have a unique process. You haven't named it. That's what we do. That's our expertise. So we're going to take what you already have, and we're going to help you become very unique in the eyes of your audience so that your book doesn't sound like everybody else's.
Right. That's awesome. And for those who are just listening to this podcast and not seeing the video, the title of that book that Michael held up is Retire on Purpose. And that has the RETIRE acronym that Lynn uses on the back. And I love that, Michael, because a lot of advisors that I run into, I will ask them a very simple question. If you meet somebody new, they've been referred to you, how do you explain to them how they get from where they are when they meet you to where they would like to be in the future?
Yeah.
And invariably, they cannot tell me.
Right.
They can describe the types of meetings that they may or may not hold that will get them to that point, but they can't actually articulate it. And so we'll go through a process with some of those clients of creating what we call a signature solution, which is that 6-step or 9-step process that Michael just described that Lynn uses in her book, which then becomes the anchor for the way that they describe things to their clients, which could probably become the outline for a book that you might help them write.
100%. Yeah. Not only the outline for the book, Rob, for the podcast, if they create a podcast around that, for any social media posting they're doing, YouTube channels, you name it. Okay. Now, in your signature solution is so right on, right? And a lens is perfect with retire on purpose and all that. And I think a lot of advisors forget that they have this already. They just, dare I say, and please don't take offense, they don't have the marketing mindset, the ability to connect the dots. They're amazing at what they do, but you have to pull back and have that ability to spin it in a marketing perspective to give it gravity. And it's why, dare I say, and I hope this is not blasphemous, it's why Dave Ramsey is so famous. His 7 baby steps. That is his signature solution. He's lived on that for years. Is it rocket science? Nope. Is it memorable? Yep. That's what you need as an advisor. You need a message that's crystal clear and that's compelling to your audience. And if you don't have that, you sound like Charlie Brown's teacher.
Right.
So,
and the crazy thing is, because so many advisors are just naturally gifted in helping their clients with their investments or their financial plans, that they can get away for years without that signature solution, without that story. But then you get to a point where you stall out and you realize that you don't really and truly know how to articulate your purpose. Maybe even you're not even sure what your purpose is because it shifted, and taking the time to document it, whether it's the signature solution or writing the book, can help you do that. And it's an exercise in marketing, but it doesn't feel like selling because it has a way of selling itself. And I know you call that credibility marketing.
Right.
And in fact, you call yourself the credibility coach. Why don't you dig into that term credibility a little bit and kind of tighten up what we're talking about?
Yeah. So credibility is my lane, right? And as I meet with people, especially advisors, right? Financial, you have all kinds of credibility. You have all these letters behind your name. And unfortunately, most people don't understand what all those letters mean. So what the audience does understand, what credibility does is it conveys a deeper level of trust and really of confidence that you are an expert and that you have my best interest and that I can trust you. That's what confidence really just boils down to. And in the mind of your audience, which is where all marketing takes place, is how do they think about you? Right? Go back to my story. When I escaped from prison, everybody thought of me as a ministry guy and they didn't hire me. Soon as I published my book, I instantly became an expert in marketing and they hired me. It's how they thought about me, right? And so credibility is influencing how people think about you with a clear message, but also with compelling content that they can sit with you. We also teach credibility marketing as we teach how to attract leads and convert them into calls, prospects. I'm a big fan of pulling back and not going after the sale today. There are some people who are in the market today for what you do, but most people aren't ready to make a buying decision for a few weeks, maybe months. How are you showing up and giving them information and walking them through your process, your signature solution over time? Are you willing to wait until they are ready? Because when you do that, you build credibility. It's like going to see your heart surgeon. You go to your doctor and he says, "Hey, Rob, we got to get you to the hospital. We got to get you to a specialist." You walk into the specialist, they have built-in credibility. You sit and you listen to what they say. That's the position we want you to be in because it makes attracting clients so much easier. You don't chase people. They come to you and they find your resources. So credibility is a trust-based platform that you're creating, and it comes from really within you, who you are, how you operate and do business. We just help you codify that in the pages of your book and then teach you in the marketing game plan and systems that we give you how to execute that very simply so that you bond with your audience a lot faster and deeper.
Yeah, and I think that goes to two really important points. At any given point, a prospective client, even a prospective ideal client, only about 3% are ready for what you want to sell them. And I know that's a bad word to some people, but we're all in the business of selling. Yeah. But there are different ways to do it. But only 3% are ready right now. Yep. So, which goes to the second point, and we call it treating your prospects like clients. So if you can use your book and your signature solution and the emails that you send out and the posts that you put on Facebook in a way that prospective future client can feel like they're already a client of your practice, when they find that need for what are they going to do with that 7-figure rollover, or how am I going to create a financial plan because I really do want to be able to retire in the next 15 years, they're going to call you because you've been there, you've shown that credibility, you've created that trust. They already feel like they are working with you.
They are. And one of the other aspects that you touched on there, I'm going to take it a little bit different tack, is referrals. I mean, I work with financial advisors all the time, and I always talk about referrals. How are you doing with referrals? And I'm like, people seem odd. They don't like giving referrals. They don't want me to ask for their friends' names and addresses and all that. And so we just pivot that whole conversation and go, Rob, all right, so Rob, you have a happy client, right? You set them up financially. They're doing great. You have a superb relationship. They love you. You love them. Rob, would you do me a favor? Well, absolutely. You're happy with me. You don't know this, Rob, but most of my clients don't come to me through the marketing that we do. They come through the recommendations of our trusted clients and their friends. It would mean a lot to me, Rob, if you'd be so willing. Could I give you 3 or 4 or 5 copies of my book? And as you are having conversations with your friends at the club, at church, wherever, about retirement, and that topic comes up, would you just hand them a copy of my book and say, well, here's the person we trust to help us. And I'm telling you, I'm sleeping great at night, and they've answered all of my questions. You should just read Rob's book. He's a great guy. Your best clients run in circles of people just like them. And putting a copy of your book, putting multiple copies of your book in their hand and giving them that little script, how fun is it for them to say, well, my guy wrote the book on retiring, on purpose. You should. Right. It helps you expand your business in a fun way that your clients will actually get on board with. And then those referrals come, and well, we all know how easy it is to sell a referral because the trust is already there. They already have a copy of your book, and it just goes on and on and on. So I think a lot of advisors overlook how easy it can be to build a system of referrals with your existing clientele, not to mention centers of influence and prospects and everything else. But that's just how we look at it. Once you have that core message, that signature solution, put it in your book. I'll teach you how to use that book to gain more clients.
Yeah, that's a great example, Michael, because as I think about advisors who we talk to all the time, they'll say, well, the only good referral is an unsolicited referral. Mm-hmm. And I know why they say that, because it was really easy to get, and that's the only ones they're getting. And my favorite response is, well, how do you get more unsolicited referrals more quickly? Wow. And it's through a credibility technique, with the book being a perfect example. Even something that is unsolicited can be a strategy if you take the time to figure out how to improve it and work on it, just the way that you described with sharing books with your extra copies of your books with your clients.
Absolutely. An unsolicited referral that is systematized. It's a system. It's a marketing system. It's one marketing system where you put books in your client's hands, you script it, you give them a script to say, you tell them when to listen for it, what to listen for. Here's what I want you to do. They're happy to do it. And it gives you a great opportunity, Rob, to follow up with that client every quarter and say, hey, Rob, just thinking about you the other day. How are things going? And how's baseball and all that? And oh, by the way, have you been given, has anybody asked for my books? Can I send you any more books to give out to your friends? Right? It just gives you another touch point every so often. You're staying top of mind and you're serving them. Anyway, there's so many things here that build credibility because you're not calling them to sell them another product. No, you're building relationships, and it's a two-way street, and they love to do it.
Yeah, because people like helping people they like. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
It's not that there's some people that wouldn't refer you to their plumber. That's just who they are. But that's a small percent compared to the percent that would be willing to if they're told how to, or you maybe telling them is not the right word, but you are encouraging them in a way that they can do it easily.
Yeah, you're scripting it. I think I learned this phrase from Dan Kennedy or somebody. You're orchestrating referrals. You have a process and a plan to go, okay, here's how we do it. And yeah, you're right. Not everybody's going to do it, but oh my, if you had 10 clients who referred you 3 people every year, what would that do for your business?
Yeah. And for most of the advisors I work with, that would probably be enough people to talk to hit whatever targets they may have for growth.
And instead of spending all of your time, effort, energy, and money on new leads out on social media world or whatever, how about focusing on your existing clientele? And instead of just doing an annual review, how about we focus on them and become a household name and do some really fun things to build referrals? Dare I say, it's a better, different way to market. You don't do everything this way, but you've got to look at your database of prospects and clients and centers of influence and realize there are acres of diamonds there. There's money to be had there if you'll strategically go after them with a phenomenal resource like a book.
So I've got one more of those kind of devil's advocate sort of points that I've heard advisors talk about when they think about writing a book and why they are, quote unquote, not qualified to write a book. And it's, I'm going to put my name on this thing, and it's supposed to help me build credibility, but I didn't really write it, and it really doesn't represent me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your process helps the potential author overcome that. But when you make the claim that, hey, I'm the marketing expert because I wrote the marketing book, you're not saying that because you wrote the book. You're saying that because you pulled the knowledge out of your head that you gained from years of experience as a marketer and just took the time to document it. And I think that's what you're suggesting your paperback expert clients do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things is we don't put content into our books. All of the content in your book comes out of your head, right? We extract your genius. They are your words. We're just crafting them and massaging them to make them sound great on paper, number one. And number two, yeah, but because of that, we're not pulling content off of the shelf or going out and grabbing blogs and slamming things in. This is you. You can talk about your business, your clientele, your industry all day long. We're just helping you guide it. So yeah, whether you write, do you know the last time Tony Robbins actually sat down and typed a book? He doesn't write books. He speaks, and he's got people in the background, or John Maxwell. He's got Charlie, who's written all of John's books, right? But that's okay. It's the content. It's the IP, the intellectual property. That is really what you're marketing. And dare I say, nobody writes books anymore, right? I tell people all the time, never write a book. You should always speak your book, whether you're using Word document, Google Docs, or our process, because it's faster and it's more compelling because you're going to speak it versus type it. So yeah, it is your content. It is your intellectual property. If you look at it that way, just codified in a book.
Right. I know when I'm working with clients, one of the things that we always do when they're doing videos or writing, we always talk about how do you repurpose what
Mhm.
you've done so that it isn't just, once and done. And when you're talking a book, you're repurposing the greatest library of content that you have. It's what you have in between your ears. It's the stuff that you're saying every day to your clients, to your team, to your prospects, that allows you to have built the business that you've built. But just saying, okay, now I want to turn this warehouse of knowledge into something that is repeatable, memorable, and referable.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of is what happens when you're thinking about credibility marketing, when you're thinking about writing a book.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the things that we do. One of the side benefits, I think, is we bring structure to your business message, because we meet a lot of advisors who have all kinds of knowledge, but it's not put together in some kind of a form or a system, kind of like a Lynn, going back to retire on purpose. The retire concept was really easy for us to see. She had never thought about that. She had her, well, I have a discovery call, and then we do the analysis, and then we have our third meeting. And I'm like, oh my God, poke me in the eye with a stick. That's so boring.
Yeah.
But now she has her retire on purpose process, and it's like, oh, okay, this is good. What? Dave Ramsey, which baby step am I on? I'm on 3. Which retire step are we on right now? We're on 3. So let's go to 4. Advisors don't have that structured pathway, and we all love pathways or frameworks or something so I can see where I'm going. That's what we're going to help you do through this process.
Right. Well, I would disagree with you slightly. I think that most advisors do have that. They just don't know how to articulate it, whether it's verbally or in writing. And it may seem like second nature when they're sitting down with the prospective client. They can kind of work their way through it. And again, it's amazing how much success really intelligent people, the people listening to this podcast, can have without a system, without articulating it. But then when you take it and you systematize it and it feels like you're really working in a purposeful way, it takes off.
And I love that because, and you're right. And what we found, so Lynn, she had retire on purpose, right? But she had not discovered it. So we just took what she already had and we put a name to it. And I think that's one of the things that once we did that, it added rocket fuel to her ship. And the advisors listening to this and the ones we work with, yeah, you're right. They have a process. They just haven't codified it. They haven't named it. They haven't whatever. Once you do that, it makes everything easier. If you're posting on social media, you never have to ever think about what to say anymore. You just go back to your process, your signature solution, and you talk about one component of your signature solution, and you bring people around that way. It's so much easier.
Well, Michael, this has been a great conversation, but I think it is time to land the plane. So 2 more things. One, is there like a last piece of advice you'd like to give the audience that's listening to this, who may be thinking about, and hopefully are thinking more about writing a book, but also are thinking about purpose and why that is so important to the health and longevity of their businesses?
Yeah, be yourself. And what I mean by that is you have a unique background. And that may have something to do with mountain climbing or bike riding or baseball or whatever. Use that in your marketing. Be yourself. Don't try to be what you think your audience wants. What they really want is the guy they could meet at your grandkid's birthday party and just have a conversation with. Be yourself. Show up like you, and you're going to connect with a lot of people who already trust you. So stop trying to be what you think they want. Just be yourself, and everything's going to work so much better.
Yeah. And that's another great part of getting that book out, is a way to remind you of who you are and not who you think you are or who other people you think other people want you to be. So that's some great advice. Be yourself. And then the last thing, Michael, I invite you to invite our audience to meet you. What's the best way for them to get to know more about you and your process?
Paperbackexpert.com. So that's our website. That is the hub of all things Michael and creating books, creating credibility. We have free trainings. There's so much information there. You can reach out and have a call with me, but paperbackexpert.com.
Right. And I think that also links out to Experts Speak, which is your podcast. And you've had some really great guests on there, he says, without any ego.
That's right. And I've had some on there twice, Rob.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, very few, but you're one of them. And and honestly, I'll extend the invitation. I love interviewing financial advisors because outside of your you guys have forgotten more about finances and in planning than most of us will ever know. So I love having financial advisors come and speak on my podcast because the information that you give is so important for people to understand. And you might actually pick up a client. So if you have interest of being a guest on my podcast, go to my website, apply as a guest, and I love to feature you on my podcast because the information you have in your little noggin is so important for people to hear, and they need somebody they can trust, and podcasting is a great way to build that. So yeah, that's at my website too.
Yeah, it absolutely is a great way to do it, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now. Michael, as always, I just so much enjoyed our conversation. You have such an energy that you bring to me that I feel better after speaking with you. And that's true whether we talk for 5 minutes or for 30 minutes. And so I really appreciate that energy. I know that is the same energy that drives you to help your clients write books and to be the best versions of themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is. And that's what you're going to get when you work with us or connect with us. So let's spread the love and spread the energy and help more people. So love to serve anybody who's listening, Rob.
Awesome. And to our audience, as always, remember, we're rooting for your success, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Purpose Focused Advisor. If you want to learn more, head over to our website, truestfancoaching.com. There you'll learn all about becoming a purpose-focused advisor. You'll also find today's show notes and links to the other gifts and resources we talked about during the episode. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, we're rooting for your success.